Feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
Rock Talk.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
Rock Talk.
Dan Toohey at the Manchester Union Leader reports that a Clinton supporter and a Sanders supporter sized up the Democrat primary fight while waiting to get into the UNH debate hall Thursday. State Rep Janet G. Wall, a Democrat from Madbury, said she's rooting for Clinton to expand her message to a younger audience, particularly the collegians and millennials, to help her win the nomination in the White House. The future of our country is at stake, she said. State Rep Wayne Burton, a Democrat from Durham, repeated a familiar Sanders line, saying his candidate is the only one not relying on super PAC money. The guy with no super PAC money is going toe-to-toe with the odds-on favorite, he said. That should be encouraging to everyone. Bernie gives us hope that democracy is alive and well. If you look over at GraniteRock.com, our own Skip Murphy reported the wise words of Howard Dean. Frankly, for Bernie to say he doesn't have a super PAC, labor unions are super PACs. Now, there are super PACs that Democrats like, so we don't go after labor unions. This is a double standard. These are super PACs partially funded by dues taken out of the taxpayer-funded paychecks of union employees who, if right-to-work states are any indication, would rather spend that money on something else. Dan Toohey is also reporting that Donald Trump took a snow day yesterday, canceling an event in Londonderry, New Hampshire on account of the weather. The Trump announcement that he would postpone his Friday appearance in Londonderry claimed airports being closed was a factor. Trump's private plane is kept at LaGuardia Airport, where CNN reported the fixed-base operator remained open as usual. Other flight advisories did indicate some significant delays at LaGuardia. The snowstorm had very little impact at Manchester Boston Regional Airport, which is a short drive to the Lions Club where Trump was to speak. Only 2 flight cancellations at Manchester occurred Friday, and they were not directly attributed to the storm, according to Deputy Airport Director Thomas J. Malfronte. So if the airports weren't closed, then what was the problem? Ted Cruz collected a number of endorsements this week, sort of. Former failed President Jimmy Carter announced that if he had to pick a Republican nominee, he likes Donald Trump better. On the Republican side, former failed presidential candidate Bob Dole, reading chapter and verse from the Rhino National Committee hymnal, said Ted Cruz is not a conservative, he is an extremist. If Cruz were the nominee, we would lose seats in Congress and governor seats and in state legislatures. Bob Dole is backing Florida Governor Jeb Bush, and if we're being honest, a Bush nomination in a 2-person race would leave tens of millions of Republicans sitting at home on election night just like 2008 and 2012. I'm not entirely sure how well that'll work out for the presidential election, for governor's races, and seats in state legislatures, but I can guess. Dole also criticized the Cruz campaign for spreading misinformation about the Carson campaign the night of the Iowa caucus. The misinformation was actually being spread by CNN as news, not that they would necessarily know the difference. Some of the content on this program is shared under the fair use provision of U.S. copyright law, found free in the public domain, or covered under Attribution 3.0. Some of the music on this program is provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. Warning, this is not a safe space. I repeat, this is not a safe space.
Rock Talk.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
Rock Talk.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
All right, welcome to another edition of Grok Talk. It is February already, can you imagine? And just a few days from now, the New Hampshire First in the Nation primary will occur on next Tuesday, and we'll find out who New Hampshire picks as their preference for the Republican primary candidate. Welcome to the program. I want to let you know who's in the room. First of all, Emily Sandblade's back. We're going to talk about some Republican primary politics. Mike Rogers, of course, and Skip Murphy, who are always here. Later on in the show, Max Abramson will be joining us to talk about Medicaid expansion. From the American Principles Project, Ralph Benko, to talk about the gold standard and, of course, the primary and the Republican candidates and how they're talking about economics. And Lisa Desjardins is here with PBS NewsHour, and we welcome her to the program, as well as a couple other folks. And then Alex Rubian from the New Jersey Second Amendment Society will join us. Don't forget, you can listen to this and past programs on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, The Rock, NHCR.com, and, of course, GraniteGrok.com. So
You forgot Ustream.
Ustream right now. But it's not, doesn't Ustream sort of drop the show after a while?
Well, that's why we put it on YouTube.
I know. Okay, so anyway, we really want to talk to Emily, and we really want to find out what she thinks. So we're going to turn some microphones on and start a conversation here. Last week we talked about Medicaid. We're going to talk about that again in 20 minutes, but you wanted to talk a little bit about presidential politics?
Oh, we could talk about the presidential politics. It's what everybody's talking about right now.
And Medicaid, or, you know.
Please make it stop. I'm done.
It's exhausting.
We're all living for Wednesday.
I'm taking 2 days vacation, one to participate in the primary process and one to get over it the day after, get over the hangover.
It has been a long...
Yeah.
How long?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years. I mean, we're all news junkies and political junkies here, but even I'm tired of the 20 calls a day asking for my opinion. Hello, who are you? Thank you, but no. Click.
Yeah. That's the funny thing is I haven't been getting any calls, but I'm on the do not call registry, so I've escaped most of that.
We like to see who calls. You know, you get the campaigns that call, and you get all these crazy numbers from all these places around the country, Chico, California, and places in Utah and Wisconsin, and we just look at the number and go, them again. You know, they just keep calling us.
Well, the only people I've had call were Democrat pollsters. I mean, and very obviously Democrat pollsters, groups that were looking for my opinion on that, and wanting to know if I was going to vote for Hillary or Bernie. And I tell them that I was going to vote for Vermin Supreme, who is on the Democrat ballot.
Yeah.
Did you you just want the unicorn? Is that?
I want the free pony.
The free pony. You're after the free pony.
I'm all for the free pony.
You know, Rick Olson, who might be here later, we never know. Sometimes our guests come and go, but he said that he wanted to vote for Vermin because he'd never tried pony before, and that was the best way to get one.
I think it is.
And for those
there's going to be a lot of pony remains in the street.
Yeah, and for those of our
Pony
listeners who have no idea who we're talking about, Vermin Supreme is a libertarian activist who actually he's a political satirist, and he is the candidate who walks around with a rubber boot on his head.
And his open carry holster strapped to the side of said boot.
Yes, and he is a little bit of political funster type stuff that we have here in New Hampshire. We always have those kinds of folks here, and it breaks up.
And he filed for president the same day as Ben Carson, and actually before Ben Carson, and had some pithy comments, and also was resentful that the Secret Service prevented him from carrying his open carry in his holster attached to his boot.
Which, by the way, is quite legal in the State House normally.
Yes.
Correct.
All right, so a couple days left before the chaos ends for us.
Yes, there's a couple of days.
What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, the polls are showing that I checked the polls this morning, and they're showing that Trump is still leading, although his lead's trimmed down a couple of points. And then Rubio is surging ahead, and Cruz is coming in third place according to the latest polls. Mm-hmm. But I consider the polls to be not very good at this point because people are still tweaking with the pollsters. And the pollsters are having a hard time getting anybody to answer their questions at this point.
Yeah.
If you call anybody, I do some polling as part of my business, and if you call anybody up, it's almost impossible to get anybody to respond to a poll at this point.
Right. Well, like I said, I'm so tired of being, the 20th, 21st, 22nd call of the day. I don't want to do it anymore. I've got better things to do.
And some people don't answer the phone. I don't answer poll calls.
Oh, a good many people don't answer the phone at this point. No. So it's very problematic because if you've got a huge majority of your population not answering the phone, and we're talking in the upper 90 percentiles, in that range that don't answer the phone and refuse to participate in a poll, there's actually no way statistically that that poll is a good quality poll.
It's a poll of people who answered the phone.
It's a poll of people who answered the phone, and you have to assume that they're answering the phone for a reason. Either
they don't have a caller ID.
Most of the time it's because they don't have a caller ID, and the only people who don't have caller IDs are people who've had the same black phone sitting in their house for 50 years and haven't changed it out.
Phone.
Yeah, I am not kidding you. I mean, I swear it must be that, and they must be 80 years old.
Yeah,
they're all 80 years old or better. And they're the only ones who don't have caller ID, and they're answering the phones. And so you can't expect that to be a fair poll.
It's like either that or they got enough time on their hands to mess with the pollsters, which most of us, frankly, don't.
So do you feel like this had an effect on Iowa? I mean, their polls weren't awful, but they
weren't very good either.
They didn't come out right.
No, they clearly didn't.
I think they measured attitude fairly well. What they didn't measure was enthusiasm and ground game. And I've read a couple of pieces this week. I read them before Iowa as well, but more pieces saying that Trump doesn't really understand what a ground game is, and therefore hadn't directed his people to put the right boots on the ground in Iowa. Whereas Cruz had done the full Grassley and had over 12,000 folks, volunteers on the ground in the precincts herding the cats for him.
No, I think it's a great point because for the last couple of cycles, be it midterm or presidentials, the polling has been awful. I mean, just look at Bratt versus Cantor.
Oh, that was fabulous.
And I mean, you look at the turnaround in the polls where Cantor should have been a walk-in, and he got stomped on, and everybody's going, "What the heck?" And it's getting to the point where the polls can't be done at this point because. Exactly. Caller ID, perfect example. I don't want to talk to these people. I get a call at the same time every single night, Operations Research. We just turn off the ringer and that's it. But they've been calling us literally for 4 months, 5:30 every single day.
There's an odd side effect to this. When my phone rings, almost nobody in my house gets up to see who it is. I got 5 people, 3 wireless phones, right? Cordless phones. Everybody, I hear the phone ringing. There's no phone near me. And I'm like, hello? Anybody getting up to see who that is? If the TV's on, the TV will tell you who it is because it just shows up there. But if nobody's watching TV, nobody cares who it is. They're just like, I'm done. I don't care who it is.
Well, what it means is it gets skewed to the very old voters. And it gets skewed away from the younger voters or the middle-aged voters. And what they try to do, and pollsters do this all the time, is they try to apply an algebraic correction to the numbers to try and adjust it to give more weight to the middle-aged voters and the younger voters to try and compensate. But I've done one poll fairly recently where our older voters outnumbered everybody else by a factor, and that we're talking over 65, outnumbered everybody else that we were able to get to answer the phone. They outnumbered them by about 5 to 1, which of course is extremely biased in that direction. And applying an algebraic correction to that doesn't help you at all. It gives you a really poor quality result.
We're almost 65 and we won't touch these damn calls. We'll go look at the candidates ourselves.
But the problem is, and I've been putting up all the videos. I got to put up Jesse Waters of Waters World of Fox News. He went to yet another college campus just to ask a simple question. Did you know what happened last week, meaning the Iowa caucuses? Do you know what's going to happen next week, meaning our first in the nation primary? They can't even find New Hampshire on the map. This is at the University of Maryland, if I remember right. I mean, at least it's on the same end of the country. You would think that most of them got, it's somewhere here in New England. You got a couple of clueless people out west or in the Midwest trying to point it out 5 times, can't get it straight. They have no clue. There's another one by Mark Dice I just put up.
Oh, he's good.
Hillary has just announced that, she's going to hire her economic advisor to be her vice president, Karl Marx. Would you sign this petition to try to help that along? And they go, oh, sure. Most of them have no idea what these political terms, they have no idea the difference between capitalism versus socialism versus communism versus fascism versus communitarianism. I mean, they just have no clue. They have no idea of current events. Frankly, if they're not in your polls, I'm good with that because we're supposed to have an informed electorate. I'm sorry. These guys aren't even informed about what they're doing now.
They should take civic tests before they get their voter registration.
But they can tell you every single celebrity that's going on, and they can tell you all of the nuances of J-Lo versus Beyonce and all of that stuff.
Which I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, right, because it doesn't matter in the big deal, other than Breitbart did say politics. Famously, he said, politics is downstream from culture. You change the culture, you change the politics. And we see in the colleges, though, they'll tell you everything about microaggressions, diversity, white privilege, Black Lives Matter, every single social justice warrior issue that you can think of that has absolutely no use at all for the most part when you're doing real work like programming or physics like you do or any of this stuff. It's like they're changing the disposition of the country.
So here's a question, and we've addressed this question repeatedly. My journey into the land of civics started in the early 2000s, and then around 2008 I started a blog, and blah, 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 and here I am. I learned a lot by going out and, saying, I don't know enough about how my government works. I don't know enough about politicians. I don't know enough about the process. I don't know enough about the founding. So I went out and I said, well, there's plenty of material here. I'm going to go learn. Not very many people are going to do that.
No.
So if we want to solve this problem, or at least approach a solution, what do we do?
Yeah, that's a good point. When I came to this country, I didn't know much about American politics and civics, obviously. But during the period shortly after I came to this country, I traveled all around the world. And having been interested in politics in England and a supporter of Thatcher, I would look at the local newspapers, try and absorb a little bit in whatever foreign language it was. A lot of it was Spanish because I traveled Latin America quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And I learned about banana republics and the changing of who was in poder, and it was very interesting. And then you talk to the local folks and try and get their impressions. Then, as you say, it came to around 2000, and especially after the Clinton era and then the Bush versus Gore, there was a lot to learn. And by the time 2007 came around and Barrio was running, I was pretty well versed in what was going on with American civics and Constitution. And about that time, I ran into you guys.
And you know a heck of a lot more than most people.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, I think from the time that I keep going back to this, but you go back to the Frankfurt School back in the 1920s, who had emigrated from Germany to California, found it too much of a decadent lifestyle, and they moved to Chicago. But between them and the Italian socialist Gramsci, who said, we're not going to do this the economic class warfare because it doesn't work here in the U.S., although one would look at the Democrat side of the political spectrum right now in the primary. I think that's exactly what they've done. But they decided, well, to change the politics, we have to change the culture. And the left, especially the new left movement based in the 60s, said, we do this by changing the education. And I find so many young people totally oblivious as to what the real history of the United States is. Not the political correctness crap where the founders are to be tossed out simply because they all owned slaves anyways.
And they were white men.
Old white guys,
old white guys.
Old rich white men. But you go through that, and that says everything that they've done is totally useless, even though the Constitution and the philosophies behind it, as you read in the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers, was something that was radical at that idea that we were the sovereigns, that we were supposed to have a government that served us instead of being subject to a government as subjects, basically.
Yeah.
And we see that being tossed away, even to the point where the University of Connecticut is now resegregating its campus because they're creating a black-only dorm. Okay, so how far have we come from the civil rights era of the 60s and the 50s to see where they're self-segregating themselves? And it's happening in various other sub-micro cultures as well. We're missing that melting pot, and I'm not even sure that we're tossed salad anymore, because tossed salad basically says we can move around. I think we're becoming an ice block.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Max is in the room, and we're going to talk about Medicaid expansion in New Hampshire. Stay tuned.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions. All right. Suddenly I can't hear myself. There we go. Yeah. Welcome back to Grok Talk. That's Bob Seeger. Yeah. Okay.
I thought it was Howard Dean. Yeah.
Welcome back to Grok Talk, brought to you by, GraniteGrok.com.
It is that time of year.
And the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, coming to you live almost every Saturday from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hi, Max. How you doing?
Great. Good morning. It's great to be here.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Max.
All right. Well, Medicaid expansion was supposed to be a temporary deal with a sunset provision. Well, that's how it was originally sold.
Every expansion of government is a temporary expansion.
That's a good point.
Like the taxes in Pennsylvania after the floods.
Or World War II withholding.
Or the Spanish-American War and the telephone tax, which we just lost a couple of years ago.
Yep.
All right. So, you're a House legislator. You there every week and inside and.
So Sean Jasper, probably the biggest crook in Concord, in my opinion. And that's saying a lot, because there are a lot of crooked
really
politicians, but there are a lot of people there who are trying to do the right thing, believe in what they're doing. But Sean Jasper sent out an assurance that no one believed that he was not going to back Medicaid expansion. Jasper has used the power of the majority office and the Speaker's office to get rid of 4 different Republican women who wouldn't vote with the Democrats. In 4 different instances, Lori Sanborn, Tammy Simmons, and a couple of others, they voted Republican. They wouldn't support Jasper's 8-cent per gallon gas tax. They wouldn't support his fee increases. They wouldn't support any, one bill. And so he said they're off the reservation. And he'd throw them out of leadership or pull them off their committee. So Jasper, as much as the Democrats like to hold Jasper out to be civil and professional and a really nice guy, he's probably the biggest bully in Concord. I've never seen a politician boast about it. So anyway, long story short, Medicaid expansion. Ted Cruz has been talking about Medicaid expansion, what a bad deal it is. But there's a whole lot more.
Didn't he address the New Hampshire House this past week?
I didn't see him.
Okay, then he talked about it in New Hampshire. I wasn't quite sure.
He was at an event,
but
we put up the video.
He's spoken at a number of events now. One in Nashua, one in, I think, Salem, and a few others. He's been speaking against Medicaid expansion. He's been very much against Obamacare and Medicaid expansion in Congress. He has a very good voting record. However, one of the issues that's been missed is the way that this particular bill has been written, and this is the 3rd iteration, and I've read all 3. They all have vague language written in them, so that even though on paper it says that they sunset, they don't really appear to sunset. In other words, there's always some back door where it makes it possible for the program to continue even after the feds pull the funding. Now, I'm not against accepting federal funding if the feds are going to pay for it. But what happens with every single federal program is, whether it's Bill Clinton's 100,000 cops on the street, special ed funding, SHIF, you name it, the feds run it for a few years, and then all of a sudden they pull the rug out from under you, and you're stuck with this huge liability. The problem with Medicaid expansion is it's something like a $240 million a year liability, and that would only go up over time as medical costs go up.
Yeah, we talked about this.
It's much higher than that. They're expecting it to be more like a $480 million liability.
What's it per budget?
I posted.
If we end up paying for half of it, it's going to be closer to 280, which is horrific.
Yeah, the official note, official fiscal note associated with Representative Joe LaChance, who famously decided to call out our Susan Olson that, of course, Obamacare's Medicaid expansion is settled law and wouldn't take the advice of her saying, no, the Supreme Court shut it down. So I've been writing about it.
Back in 2012.
Yeah, you're a little late.
Not
but anyways,
recent.
that is showing just a major increase to the general fund, as we talked about earlier, of an additional $50 million a year. But you're right. That's if the feds keep paying. And I've heard right from the get-go, since they passed Obamacare, that percentage is going to go down. And that's where we get the crony capitalism with Jeb Bradley Care, because he's made monopolies of where the hospitals are, so now they can charge whatever they want, so they can give voluntary contributions back to the state. I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen when the hospitals say, it's voluntary, we don't have to, and I want to watch the Republican heads explode.
Well, what's really weird about this is these hospitals are supposed to be nonprofit. And if they can swallow half of what Medicaid expansion isn't covering, what the feds aren't covering, where are they getting the money from? Why are they nonprofit?
That's a huge profit on which they're paying a huge tax, which isn't really voluntary.
Yeah, well, all of these hospitals have undergone rather large capital expenditure programs over the We did an entire wing. I mean, this was a massive expansion of money, and yet they were crying poor mouth for the previous 3 years of huge losses, relatively speaking. Where does this money come from? And all you can say is, one hand is feeding the other. There is a lot of crony capitalism going on here in New Hampshire because you can't spend what you don't have. Well, they're spending it, so it's got to be coming from somewhere.
Well, I think it's going to end up getting passed through to the insurance companies and to the patients as insurance premium increases.
Hi, Max.
Well, that's
a tax in a way. I mean, we're not going to call it a tax, but it really is a tax.
This is the nature of Grok Talk. Go ahead.
17 state legislatures have rejected Medicaid expansion. States all over the country have rejected it, and nearly all of the states that have caved in and taken the Medicaid expansion funds are now finding that their out-of-pocket or out-of-general fund expenses are much, much higher than expected. Their mandates are more expensive than expected, and there are more strings attached than they thought.
And so that's what's important, because a lot of this debate about local control and federal money comes with the strings. It's okay, they took our money. All right, maybe our Congress people aren't doing a good job of keeping them from taking our money, but now they want to give it back to us. But we only get it back with conditions, and those conditions are awful. And you've always told the stories about sidewalks and swimming pools or skating rinks or whatever your town took federal money for. They have to maintain it forever and ever and ever, or the government's going to come and say, write us a check, give us our money back. It's not their money,
plus interest.
Plus interest. So the strings are awful. The rules, the regulations, the abuse of the regulatory state all comes with that cash. So, I mean, while it's okay to take federal money for some programs, I suppose, I wouldn't want to do it unless you didn't have to deal with all of that.
And we frequently find every year in the state budget process, every time someone finds a way to do things more efficiently, there are always strings attached from some old federal program, grant, donation, something from some of them 50 years ago. 50 years ago, and we're still stuck with these mandates, and it creates continuous upward pressure on the budget. So who knows, people who want to retire in New Hampshire or open up a business here 10, 20 years from now, what is that going to do? And if we have the legislature continuing to accept more and more federal funds for nice-sounding things that are going to result in huge liabilities, then that tells you that if you move here, your business profits tax, business enterprise tax, commercial property taxes are going to be much, much higher 10, 20 years down the road. So do you really want to spend the money moving to New Hampshire knowing that your tax burden is only going to go up?
Yeah, well, the thing is we see this cost shifting, and the politicians at every single level are always complaining about, well, they're going to push that cost down to our level and down and down. So, federal government to state government to county government to local towns. I got news for you. What they all want you to miss, and I've said this, are always going to come out of our pocket. And if they do the shifting like they are with Medicaid expansion, where the hospitals are going to voluntarily give money back to the state, I'm sorry, that is an artificial cost put on the hospitals by government, although they're in on the game. Who gets to pay for it in the end? We do, either direct payments or we have to pay higher premiums or what have you. It's always the consumers that pay for government spending, regardless of how it's initiated, regardless of how it's filtered, and regardless of how the politicians lie about it.
And where they dress it up, whether they take it from businesses or whether they take it directly out of our pockets at the state level or whether it's federal dollars. It all comes out of our pockets.
Right. So this nonsense that Medicaid expansion here in New Hampshire is not going to cost New Hampshire taxpayers anymore, that's not going to cost at all, is a crock because almost all of us are federal taxpayers. And that's what I mean about this. Everything rolls downhill to the taxpayers.
You do your taxes yet?
If we care about our country, if we care about the $20 trillion national debt, if we care about the $26 trillion in unfunded entitlement obligations, we've got to stand up now as a state and say, no more to Obamacare, no more to socialized health care, no more to government takeover of our daily lives, of our doctor's offices, of our insurance, of healthcare, hospitals.
Yeah. And no, and hell no to any
They keep campaigning about smaller government, lesser spending, and all of that stuff, and yet they keep passing all these higher budgets all along. It's like Glenn Reynolds of Instapundit is famous for saying, a thing that is not sustainable won't be. And at some point, now it's officially $19 trillion in debt. The interest payment is going to go up. It is going to swallow the government, and it will stop at some point. The problem is, far more people will get hurt then than if they started slowing the spending down now. But they're not going to do it.
The grassroots, which is not very far from where you're sitting in the House, is that there's this pretty much Medicaid expansion thing is a juggernaut that nobody can stop. Is that true? Or are we stuck with this? Do you think there's anywhere in the legislative process where this will get held up?
The only place where it can be stopped is in the State House. It's coming up for a vote. Was it Wednesday or Thursday?
Next Wednesday.
It's coming up for a vote. We have a lot of bills coming up. This is the hot, contentious issue. It's going to come down to maybe 1 or 2 or 3 votes, some people think. We're doing the counting in the committees, what they call whipping. They talk to Republicans. The vast majority of Republicans are against it. But there are enough rhinos in there that they could potentially pass this. Now, expandnh.org has a state income tax calculator, and you can plug in the facts and figures and see the state income
coded
tax.
by this young lady right here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Emily Sandblades.
You're
Great
welcome.
one. It has a state income tax calculator. When, not if, when the feds pull the rug out from under us, what state income tax or state sales tax? I think a state sales tax would be even more destructive to our economy than a state income tax. But anyone voting in favor of House Bill 1696 needs to be voted out, primaried, and if they win their primary, we need to vote them out in November. We have to let them know beforehand. Call your legislators, email them, tell them, look, this is the most important vote of the year for me. You vote against 1696. Otherwise, we will eventually be left with some type a broad-based tax. After years and years and years of fighting against a state income tax, we have the Democrats and once again the rhinos under Jasper and his crony buddies.
And Bradley.
And Bradley, Jasper, Hinch, Flanagan, all these rhinos who love to vote for this big government stuff and then act like they're Republicans. Most of these guys come from safe Republican districts. So they know they can't get elected running as a Democrat, which is the easy way most of the time if you're backed by the lawyers and union officials and bureaucrats and people who are on the take. The easy way is usually to run as a Democrat because there's a lot less active involvement by Democratic voters, or they're very, very emotional voters. However, when they're coming from a safe Republican district, what do? They go to Republican events, they don't say very much, and then they just kind of sit back and let the process put them in office, and they just sit there running again and again and again.
Yeah. And it is starting to filter into the Republican base as well. Because I met, and I posted this up last week, I ran into somebody who's been an activist for years, ran campaigns for local Republicans in the Lakes region, and he said, I'm done. I am tired of working to get people into office and just see other Republicans act like Democrats, voting, as you said, for the gas tax, for this Medicaid expansion tax. I mean, not the tax, well, soon-to-be tax, but Medicaid expansion. This is one of the biggest agendas on the Democrat list of stuff to get done. And this time,
done by Democrats and rhinos. Rhinos are just corrupt politicians who say, why not run as a Republican because it's so easy?
Right, but it's the Republican Party that says we are for opposite of those things, and then the Republican Party says nothing.
No, all of us real Republicans vote no.
No, I'm talking about the Republican Party, the NHGOP.
Okay, but don't call these rhinos Republicans. They are simply corrupt Democrats. That's all they are. They have no interest in the well-being of the public. They don't care about AIDS, traffic accidents. They don't care about the safety of the public. They don't care about local control. They don't care about free markets. They don't care about principle. They are there to steal vote after vote after vote after vote. In committee after committee after committee, we're seeing them play the same games. All the Democrats and rhinos are twisting your words around and lying and pushing the same big government, George Soros agenda over and over and over again, and we've got to get involved in the primary process in September and vote these criminals out.
Miguel.
Yeah, sure. So it seems to me but
all of a sudden. And the question is they're expecting it to expand to 58,000 people in the next 2 years. And then when Medicaid expansion fails, you're going to have 58,000 people that you have to deal with their insurance issues.
Right. So 10% of the New Hampshire electorate is by the ankles to the government.
Yes, and it's like an addicting drug. I mean, the first sample is free. And that's pretty much what the pattern has been.
All right. We're going to call Ralph Benko from the American Principles Project. I'm having a problem with my sounds today. And we're going to talk about the gold standard and a little bit more presidential politics in relation to monetary policy. So everybody hang in there, and we will be right back after I push these buttons.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live.
Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday All right, welcome back to Grok Talk. Again, brought to you by the Co. A lot of buttons to push, a lot of things going on. All right, well, our next guest founded the Prosperity Caucus gathering of supply-side and free market economists, served on detail as Deputy General Counsel to the President's Commission on Privatization and on White House agency staff under President Reagan. He's a weekly columnist and a senior advisor to the American Principles Project. There's that sound again. Please welcome to the program, Mr. Ralph Benko. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning, New Hampshire.
Good morning. Where are you calling us from? Yeah, hang on a second. Let me turn off some mics here. Ralph,
okay.
Ralph, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, good. Alrighty. So, let's talk about economics and the gold standard, shall we?
Well, actually, I want to talk about the presidential campaign, but if you insist...
Well, let's combine those two things. Let's talk about the presidential campaign related to that economics, because I think that's really what we want to talk about.
Yeah, we want to talk about prosperity, we want to talk about economic growth, and we want to talk about...
Mike?
No.
No? You don't have a...
advocate of gun rights, but nevertheless, there's a lot of wisdom in the old saying, never hand a loaded pistol to a little kid. So you've got Donald Trump out there with a tax plan that was scored by the Tax Foundation as a $10 trillion deficit monster. That would raise the deficit more than, say, Barack Obama had. And you have, Donald Trump out there whipping Janet Yellen to raise interest rates, which he then says would cause a recession/depression. So I don't know if your listeners in New Hampshire understand the fact that the presidency of the United States is the most powerful office in the world. And so if you give it to a loving and beloved character from Queens like Donald Trump, you're putting a pistol into the hands, loaded pistol into the hands of a child. So meanwhile, you have very responsible candidates like Ted Cruz tax plan was scored as a $10 trillion tax increase that would raise all of our taxes, all of us working people that he loves. It would give us all a tax increase of around 10%, and it would shrink the economy by 10%. We're talking Great Depression levels here. So you got Cruz, who's been scored as a 14% cut versus and almost deficit neutral versus Trump's tax plan, and you've got Cruz calling for the gold standard, which I'm real happy to talk about because it's got a very distinguished pedigree. And you've got Trump calling for a policy that he himself says would cause a recession/depression.
Dollars as far as new spending, and you're absolutely right. But to them, it's not a big deal because they're the Democrats, or I'm just going to call them plain socialists, because that's to them. And they're just reallocating it back to us. They are always saying that we are a wealthy nation. Of course, you point to the $19 trillion and say, hey, we can take care of that. We can pay that credit card as we go along. So I'm not surprised that these guys basically are absolutely showing, for the first time in a really huge way, we know better how to spend your money, and they have no problem. They don't see this as theft. They just see it as we have this income inequality, and we're going to change it whether you like it or not. We are rapidly going back to the time of we no longer have a citizenry that happens to have a government. We have a government that has ATM machines.
I'm a writer and I'm a policy advocate. I say, well, I work for the government because it turns out that the largest chunk of my income goes to the government, and the rest of it goes to the insurance companies and the rates that we had. It wasn't the gold standard, but it was years. Due to the miracle of compound interest, all of our paychecks would be something like 50% bigger. The GDP wouldn't be $18 trillion. It would be $25 or $27 trillion. So, well, sluggishness and immigration, and they're campaigning on a lot of issues that aren't immaterial. National security. Yeah, I get all that, but whatever happened to the American dream of equitable prosperity? From 0.7% rate to 4 or even 5% rate, and all of a sudden the deficit starts to melt away. At those growth rates, we create so many jobs, we grow the economic base so fast that all of a sudden, without raising tax base explodes, and the money starts rolling into Washington. I know you've about Trump's proposal for a new Great Depression, although, of course, to give Donald his due, it would not be the Great Depression. It would be the greatest depression ever.
Oh, God.
And $10 trillion of more national debt. I mean, come on, give me a break. Whereas, you've got Cruz with his very interesting, very high-powered Reagan-esque supply-side tax and gold standard plan. And you have Marco Rubio. Posted a column where you guys posted a blog for me, thank you very much, yesterday or the day before, that digs down into the actual platforms of the Republican candidates to see what they have to say about restoring our paychecks.
And that's fabulous. Hang on, Steve, you got me on?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Ralph, there's a couple of things here. First of all, on Donald Trump, regardless of, as you say, the specifics of his proposals, which aren't that great.
You can't hear.
He's not hearing anybody.
And that means that somebody who's making, a family of four making $72,000 would be paying an effective rate of 5%.
Perfectly stated. So, I've looked at these things, Ralph, as is Mike, and I say the way I see it is his business tax looks a lot like a fair tax, except it doesn't have all the complexities and the prebates.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
We got a lot of things going on. Sometimes the phone doesn't work as well as we'd like. Sometimes it does. That's just the nature of the problem. Maybe someday we'll have that fixed. You don't have to. Who are you calling now? That's not for.
And municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your
at the their super PAC. I'm not entirely sure how well that'll work out for the presidential election, for governor's races, and seats in state legislatures. Free in the public domain or covered under Attribution 3.0. Some of the music on this program is provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. Rational libertarians. So get ready for more news. But today we do. Our next guest is reporter for
Right.
PBS NewsHour. You do this
Right.
all year long.
Yeah.
How do you do that? I mean,
And
through government.
right, and it's a really interesting mix on the Hill right now on Capitol Hill, where you have a lot of people who say they don't want to interfere in government, but then yet sometimes you see the bills they pass, and now I don't have a political stance. I sort of question both parties, but I think I've definitely noticed, I know this show has noticed, that in the past year, there have been a lot of Republicans who say we're really worried about the national debt. We don't want more spending, but we saw a lot of spending get passed by those Republicans. I love what you were saying about the sunsetting. Is not really sunsetting. That was really interesting. Yeah.
On Medicaid expansion.
Yeah.
Actually have.
Study on after decades of Congress abdicating its power. Now they're starting to say we need to rectify that. And they want to either put a study committee together to say, how does Congress take back its power? And I'm thinking, you
But they're trying to look like they're doing more, at least.
And I think you just hit it. They're trying to look like it, because we've all been saying out here, if you read the Founding Fathers' writings, one of the most abiding things about the separation of powers was that each branch would jealously, and they use that word specifically, jealously guard their privileges and power. And yet we've seen from being instead of branch to branch to branch, we're seeing it more party to party.
Well, that's right.
And they throw away that
semi-autonomous agencies, which are part of the executive branch, but Congress created and so on. But we're not for an enormous regulatory agency that stops normal business from happening.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you shut that down is for Congress to rewrite the law authorizing these, specifically with a much smaller budget.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
There shouldn't be the
Yeah.
rule making. No, and again,
But you're saying there shouldn't be. If they're writing more than that, they shouldn't be writing it.
they should be
Is that what you're saying?
enforcing
Yeah.
the law.
Okay.
Period. This
Gotcha.
administrative rule bit has
Yeah.
gone way too far. Where now they look at the EPA. They write the rules,
Right.
which is the force of law. They have their own investigators. They have their own administrative courts. They have their own administrative judges, and they have their own
Police forces.
Police
And they have
forces.
SWAT teams.
Yeah. So
More
in
police
essence,
forces in Washington D.C. than anywhere else per square mile.
and is that something that there's 30 different administrative agencies now that have their own SWAT teams? Is this what the founders
I don't know that.
envisioned?
Yeah, maybe.
This is. We are the safest podcast here in New Hampshire, and we are armed with more than just opinions.
See, that's
And
great.
we are.
You are
That's
safe.
Manchester area's only
create a phone. He's absolutely right, and he. Individuals. They said we're trying to rope government in, and it has sprung loose from the fence.
So you
wait a minute, hold on.
Sorry, Max.
So the whole idea of a
some extent maybe the rules, which is sort of that maybe that's where we get into this area. What is enforced needs to be written by Congress.
Congress and to some
Absolutely.
That's what I was getting from you guys.
Not more of.
Yeah.
Only by.
It's like an open-ended direction, authorization of military force or declaration of war that says to the president, go get on with it. We don't care what you do now.
Yeah.
Wait, you have And most Democrats, obviously, that well, I guess that's debatable. You just gave a look, but Democrats are in the House have not been official socialists. But I know 45.
What happened to all the
have
blue
served a
Democrats?
university.
Don't care about people.
I mean, you mentioned the bubble. I mean, the Washington bubble is it's real. It's very real.
Oh, yeah.
And it's real for every sort of different type of person that inhabits. And so there's staying in Washington. Giving you the kind of blank script, appropriate robot answer, and it. Which I don't like to do, but even off the record, you don't feel like you're quite getting the real deal, and it's frustrating. It's hard covering the Hill because everyone is now just it's.
If the economy or people die in order to get to their utopia.
easily categorize us as we're just part of the Leave Us the Hell Alone coalition. And, you know,
wrestling with us.
You guys, what a pleasure. I can't believe we didn't even talk about the race. I can't believe it.
We can get to that.
Amazing. All right. It's great.
We don't mind.
Okay, good. We'll sit back and listen. Great.
All right, everybody stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Alex Rubian from the New Jersey Second Amendment Society.
Of Dread at Large in the morning. The Manchester area's only locally owned
All right.
keep trying during the show, and that wired headset should be fine. But it is a cell phone, right?
To you by granitecroc.com. Okay, we're going to talk about Governor. Flash, documenting the governor's stand, his public statements, what's actually happening. They've actually tried to go and operate within this system.
There you go.
Hey!
There's a political joke. This one woman was complaining that somebody stole this Bernie Sanders bumper sticker off her car, and she couldn't believe how much people didn't respect private property rights.
Oh!
I mangled the joke earlier. Hashtag Sanders is so...
Kind of a businessy suit, but it kind of looked like prison attire, and so I put orange is the new black.
Oh my!
Yeah, but that's nothing compared to one of the photoshops that's out on the internet.
Although with Hillary, you'd have to say orange is the new aquamarine. The color she chooses for her jumpsuits.
All right, Alex, can you hear me?
Now, listen to how insane this is, and the terror we had to deal with every single day as New Jerseyans. For over 6 years now, we've been telling the governor's office, the attorney general's office, and the police department that they're violating the law, that they're requiring all these additional forms, all these additional requirements when applying for a firearms card. No gun. Going around the country lying to people, saying he's made it easier to get a conviction. And we've documented that. If you go to nj2as.com, you can see our undercover videos. The cops are blatantly laughing when I ask them, the Governor Christie makes a concealed carry application easier, and they're laughing in our face, even admitting to the fact that he speaks from both sides of his mouth and has done nothing. If anything, it's harder today than it was 6 years ago.
Have you guys got a plan in place? I mean, I know this is New Jersey, and obviously your goal is to try to improve the circumstances for acquiring a permit to even purchase a firearm, let alone a carry permit. What do you think? What's your long-term strategy for trying to improve that situation in your state?
Police officers and denying them permits. One case in particular that I was contacted by last years in the police department, and he believes you have to serve 25 years. That's the kind of terror that we deal with, and this is classic statist mentality.
I know that it's going to be difficult. When you look at the map, like say in New Hampshire, we look at 400 House seats, for example, and we try to find legislators and districts that we can flip to people who are more favorable. Do you have any hope of that in New Jersey?
You know what? Unfortunately, we lost 4 more assembly seats to the Democrats, which was a massive
I don't think all 20,000 are going to move.
And how long is it going to take?
We already have 2,000. 5 years.
Yeah.
It's over
They
a
say
5-year
5
period.
years, but I think it's.
You think it's going to take a little longer?
I talk to people. I talk to people many, many times, and it would take. Oh, I'm going to come next year. I'm going to come next year. I'm going to come next year. Some of them took 5, 6, 7 years before they.
I don't know that I could just, on a dime, move.
But still, I think it'll be a good thing, going back to what we've been talking about, which is who should be in charge? Should it be government or individuals?
Individuals.
Yeah. All righty. Well, that's another week and another program. We'll come back next week with more guests and more conversation. And I really never know where we're going to go, but somehow we always end up on a very similar theme, which is local government control, individual rights, personal responsibility, simple conservative constitutional values. These are just the things that are the foundation of what we talk about here and what we believe. And hopefully you'll come and join us. And make sure you share the program, please. We have plenty of places for you to listen. Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio, therocknhcr.com. You can listen to past programs every day from 9 to 11 a.m. at GraniteRock.com, and we encourage you to do that. So everybody check back and listen in and click on our podcasts and share our stuff, and we'll see you next week. Right? Yay. Everybody good?
Yep.
All righty. Thank you so much. Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
Rock Talk.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. Some of the content on this program is shared under the fair use provision of U.S. copyright law, found free in the public domain, or covered under Attribution 3.0. Some of the music on this program is provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
Rock Talk.